If you're one of these people that has never tried an SG, has been maybe put off, the devil horns maybe scare you a little bit, or whatever it is, I urge you to give one of these a try, because I think you might be surprised at how versatile they are and how comfortable they are. It's almost unfair, really, that Epiphone are not giving us something to complain about. It's not an expensive guitar. Surely something should be wrong with it, so we can go, oh, this is a bit rubbish. So I think I've made the point, haven't I? Cool. Let's move on. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. So what have we got today? Well, specifically we're looking at this wonderful Ebony, inspired by Gibson, Epiphone SG Custom, which we have obtained from a PMT. We got this, £469 this model currently retails at in the UK. Brilliant excuse, however, to dig out this, our 2017 Gibson SG Custom, which I've owned since new. In 2017, they issued this as a limited edition then, and a kind of a new variation on the SG Custom theme. You'll be familiar with the original SG Custom, which was released in 1961 under the Les Paul name. Obviously at that point, and that was the white one with the 3 pickups and all the gold hardware, and then over the years they've kind of tweaked that kind of design a little bit. What they did here is they made it into a version of the black Les Paul Custom by obviously, you know, using the appropriate split diamond headstock and the gold hardware, and just trying to make it look like an SG version of that. So very cool guitar. Yeah, I use this one quite a lot. In fact, you can tell because it's got what I'd like to call the mojo all over it still. You can see some proper mojo on that, where it's been played. I actually use this one with my band, actually, when we get together. I used this, I recall, to play. We did a cover of Motorhead by Hawkwind, obviously. No, okay. No, you're saying, no, it wasn't. Motorhead was by Motorhead. If you're saying that, you're not old enough to remember that Lemmy was originally in Hawkwind, a band called Hawkwind. Google that up if you're not even familiar with Hawkwind, for God's sake. 60s brilliant psychedelic rock band. Lemmy was in Hawkwind and wrote Motorhead with Hawkwind and sung Motorhead with Hawkwind, and then got kicked out, so took that song to Motorhead. And the rest is history. They're quite different versions. Now, we were trying to do a kind of a hippie trippy version a la Hawkwind original, but you just can't. Once you've got the Motorhead version in your head, you're off. It got a bit frantic. And there's the mojo to prove it. And I love it when you've got a guitar and you can tell that you've played it. You know, it's properly earning its keep, and you're going, okay, now this is a guitar that obviously ain't going anywhere because I play it. I like it. And the other thing I want to point out is this. So this, you know, I got this new 2017. It's a black nitrocellulose guitar. And as I hope you can see on some of these multiple cameras, to this day, it still hasn't got anything like the amount of scratches on it that the black nitrocellulose guitar that I bought from Peach Guitars 6 months ago had when it arrived. This has got a few little scratches that I've put on it myself. That is normal for a black nitrocellulose Gibson. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise, because they're not telling the truth if they do. Moving on, and the keen-eyed amongst you might have noticed that I just knocked that. It's all right, I haven't damaged it. Okay, so let's start with the elephant in the room. Only one of these guitars has got an ebony fingerboard. Probably most of you are thinking that's the Gibson. Well, in fact, it isn't. The Epiphone here is the one with the ebony. Lovely, lovely looking ebony fingerboard. Very, very nice indeed. Whereas the Gibson is Richlight, which in around about 2017 was one of Gibson's new innovations, where they attempted to bring guitar design into the 21st century by replacing something on a lot of their range with something that nobody wanted. So they introduced this Richlight, which is a composite plastic, I believe, you know, and it looks like ebony, and they say it feels better. You know, they came up with some way of, you know, explaining how it sounds, like there's extra snap to the sound or whatever. Well, I don't know if there's any difference in sound, to be honest with you, anyway. But I do know that everybody hated it. Everybody gave them a lot of shit for it, and before too long they dropped it. And as far as I know, they don't make any guitars with Richlight now. Although I know other manufacturers do and swear by it, and they say it's a great material to work with. I think some of the acoustic manufacturers do. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, it is what it is. It sounds great and plays great. And, you know, as you can see, I play it, so I wouldn't know the difference. So, you know, it's a great touch when Epiphone released this, and they've done this properly. They've put an ebony fingerboard on it, because the one thing that people would have criticised on this guitar is if it had not had an ebony fingerboard. You know, if it had had rosewood or Indian laurel or whatever, it wouldn't have been right. Everyone would have criticised it. So you can see that Epiphone themselves are really thinking, or the designers at Epiphone are really thinking about this stuff. And they've made a guitar that really looks like an SG Custom. Well, one of the things, so obviously they're both made of mahogany. They've both got mahogany necks. We'll measure the necks in a little while, and we'll put the profiles and the measurements up on screen so you can compare them. The Gibson's got a quite a nice rounder C than the Epiphone's called Slim Taper, and it's a little bit slimmer, which will suit a lot of people. So whilst the Gibson is you know, nitrocellulose, the Epiphone is made of some kind of poly, you know, gloss finish. It's thicker. You can tell, and I think you can see the difference if you look at the horns on these. On the Gibson, there's quite a sharpness to the lines on this. Quite sharp. Whereas the Epiphone is less so. It's noticeably less so. It still looks cool, still looks good, it's still the right shape, but I think you can see, I'm thinking that's probably the difference in the thickness of the coat that's on there, rather than the actual carve. So you can therefore imagine that this is quite a lot thicker. I have made a couple of changes to this one. I changed the pickups out. The original pickups on this were these ones here. I dug them out just to show you that I'm not lying. There you go. The original pickups on that were the 490R for the neck and the 498T for the bridge. And they weren't really doing it. I wanted a bit more of a vintage kind of a voicing on it. again, you know, the neck was a bit woolly on this, so I changed them. These are Seymour Duncan 59s, and they're better. They're definitely better. So yeah, I got a set of these. So even, you know, you're paying £2.5 for a guitar. You know, it's not necessarily going to sound the way you want it straight away. Sometimes you have to experiment. And I found pickups that suited this much better. The other thing I also did change on this is the bridge. The original bridge was this Tune-o-matic. And that's the Nashville style, I think they call that one, isn't it? Which is obviously bigger than, and I changed it for this ABR1 style Tune-o-matic, which went straight on. I mean, there's a Gibson one. And you know, you can see the difference. It looks better, and it also sounded better. It opened it up a little bit more as well. So this is sounding pretty cool now. Obviously, so given the changes that I've made to that, we're not going to do today a stock comparison of what this is like stock with what the Epiphone like stock, because this isn't stock. And I'm not about to put it back to standard just for your entertainment. I mean, I would, but on this occasion, I'm not going to. So get over that. So going up to the top end, obviously you've got the split diamond inlay. On the Gibson, we've got Grover Rotomatic tuners in gold, and on the Epiphone, we have got Cluson Deluxe, and again the split diamond headstock. I'm just actually feeling those guitars now. So there's two things I want to talk about. Let's weigh them first. Let's get these bits out of the way. Oh, actually, just before I do that, the Gibson originally came with these. I think these are like the 50s style knobs. These are my least favourite of all time Gibson knobs. I know they come on the early juniors and stuff, but I'm not a fan of those. So I changed them for these witch hat knobs, which I think are the coolest ever Gibson knob of all time. These are the 60s style top hat knobs with the metal inserts. These are my second favourite Gibson knobs of all time. So that's that. So let's move this stuff out of the way now. Yeah, so let's weigh these things. Let's start with the Gibson. So the Gibson weighs £6 and 15 ounces, or 3.15 kilos. Okay. And the Epiphone weighs £6 11 ounces, or just over 3 kilos. Okay. Now what you can feel is that the weight's carried slightly differently, and a lot of the difference in the weight here is these Grover tuners. And people talk about neck dive a lot when they talk about SGs, and it's funny, I read read stuff on forums a lot. Yeah, no, I shouldn't, but I do, about SGs and the problem they have with neck dive. SG's my favourite guitar, and I just don't notice it. When you think about it, you go, oh yeah, I'll show you something. I'll show you this. Let's get this out of the way. So let's do the neck dive test on these. So I can tell you now that the Gibson here, it's got pretty pronounced neck dive. And this is a normal kind of leather strap, nothing fancy, but this is what, hopefully, there you go. So that's what they call neck dive. I mean, I don't know about you, but I play a guitar supporting it with my hand, so I don't find it a problem. I rarely play the guitar like that without using my left hand, or so it's not something that I've ever really noticed when I'm playing. Let's try the Epiphone. Well, this one doesn't appear to have any significant neck dive at all. And I would say that's almost certainly down to the fact that these tuners will be a lot lighter than these Grovers. So you can feel the weight. If you did a, if you did a balance test, so I think I've made my point, haven't I? Yeah, cool. Let's move on. Yeah, talking about the fretboard on the Epiphone, ebony, really nice looking thing. The frets, medium jumbo frets as always, looking very good. It's got a Graphtec nut on the Epiphone, and these nuts are, are well cut. You can see straight away that, there's plenty of room for the strings to move. So the notorious tuning issues that people talk about also for SGs, I was just actually talking to a guy in the comments about this today. It put me off playing SGs when I got back into playing guitar about 7 or 8 years ago. I'd always been into SGs, when I was younger, and I wanted to play an SG in my band, but I was really put off by this kind of tuning issue thing that people talk about with Gibsons and with SGs in particular. And I discovered that, and I've covered this before, but I will say that don't be put off, because it is always the nut, and just make sure that the nut's well cut, and you always tune up to pitch. Never tune down. You always tune up to pitch and stretch your string when you're doing it. Stretch it, so detune it, stretch it, and tune up to pitch. And it will, providing the nut is well lubricated, it will not be a problem. The problem is with Gibsons, they often come with nuts like this, and you can see, I think this is plastic. I think it's just a plastic nut, this. I don't have the specs for this to hand, but you can see it looks tight. It looks tight. Now, with this, I haven't had any problems because it isn't, or I've probably used nut sauce on this. It's a lubricant you can put in the slots, and again, as long as you're tuning up to pitch, the reason you tune up to pitch is because it makes sure you stretch the strings. It makes sure the tension's equal either side of the nut, I suppose, that it can't slip. And that's why it goes out of tune, because it'll slip. So if you make sure the nut's lubricated, or quite often you need to change the nut on a Gibson to make sure to make it work. So these are, they're troublesome little beasts, to be honest with you. But this Epiphone's great. You'll have no such problem. So don't be put off by fears of it not staying in tune. We'll play it in a minute, and I'll show you what I mean. I ain't going to go out of tune, and I'll give it a hammer in, and you'll see. It ain't going to go out of tune. But we're going to change the strings first. So I'm going to put same strings on both and set them up. Now let's measure the pickups outputs. So the pickups on the Epiphone, these are Alnico Classic Pros, which are based on the Gibson 57 Classics, and I suppose should give it a fairly sort of a fairly hot vintage kind of voicing. Let's see what the outputs are on these. All knobs on 10. Right, so on the bridge pickup, we've got 7.75 kilo ohms, and on the neck pickup, 7.39. Okay, so yeah, they're good. Not too hot, so that's sounding good. And on the Gibson, as I say, not a fair comparison, because I changed the original pickups out of this for these Seymour Duncans 59s, which let's have a see what they are. The bridge on that measures 7.95 and the neck 7.14. So not a massive difference. So yeah. All right. Well, you know, it doesn't really mean anything, does it, until you hear what it sounds like. So we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so let's have a look at the neck profile and measurements of the Epiphone. This is on the 1st fret. And this is the 12th fret. And this is the Gibson on the 12th fret. Okay, so let's just put those side by side so we can compare. I think we can see that the Gibson profile is rounder. Okay, so let's have a look at the pots and stuff. Now I know from the specs that the Epiphone has got CTS potentiometers, and it's got an Epiphone 3-way toggle. It hasn't got a switchcraft toggle. So it looks nice and tidy. You've got it's hand wired, except it's got these plug-in pickups for it saves a few quid, doesn't it? So there you go. Nice, fairly tidy job on the old Epiphone. I don't actually know what is in this Gibson, so. And the Gibson here, as you can see, is all hand wired. It has got the original Gibson pots, and it's got 50s wiring. Now, I'm sorry, I can't remember if I did that or it came like that. And also, it's got the orange drop capacitors, which I may have put in myself. I can't remember, sorry. But there you go. Now, the other thing I noticed actually while we got these backs is that the profile on the heel is slightly different. You can see on the Gibson just a little bit of a taper, just a little bit of a taper there where the strap button is. Let's put that there. And no such taper at all on the Epiphone. It's just flat there. I think that's enough for now, don't you? Let's put them back together, put some new strings on both of them, and give them a play and see what they sound like. All right, see you in a minute. Ta. So there you go. I hope that gave you an idea of some of the sort of sounds you can get out of an SG, really. And this is a proper SG. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. It's yeah. I've got a lot of SGs, and as you might have noticed, there's a wall of SGs behind me. If you haven't noticed that, you're really not paying attention. But this is, well, I'm not going to say it's as good as any of them, because some of them are fantastic, but it's as good an SG as you'd expect for £469. And it's an SG, and if you've never played an SG or you've always wondered about SGs, I urge you to get one and try it. They're so comfortable to play. They really are comfortable to play. You know, you can see how light it is. You have this access all the way up to the top frets. It's really nice, and you know, tone wise, it's got it all going on, really. You've got probably a wider range than you'll get from a Les Paul. And I will do an SG and Les Paul comparison soon. And I'm thinking that might give me an excuse to go and buy the Epiphone SG Standard, which is 100 quid cheaper than this and comes in white, which I really fancy. So I'm going to make a commitment here and now, without thinking it through, that I'm going to do a comparison between an Epiphone SG Standard and an Epiphone Les Paul Standard to show you what the differences in tone are. I like SGs because they've got they've got more top to them, if you like. They've got more of an edge than a Les Paul has, and they do pretty much everything, you know, that a Les Paul can. But as I say, we'll get into that in another film, I think. But if you've not tried an SG, you really should. This is £469. The standard is £369, I believe. So it's an entry level, and don't go thinking that this is not a proper SG, that you need to get a Gibson, that you need to pay whatever it is they're charging nowadays for an SG Standard. You don't. This is a proper SG. So playability wise, fantastic. Feels like an SG, plays like an SG, sounds like an SG. There was one dead fret on this. If I bend on the 12th fret of the E, it frets out. So a little bit of work needed on the frets, which, you know, it'd be better if you didn't have to do any work like that. But it's an affordable guitar still, so you know, you might expect to have to do a few little tweaks. Tuning stability, I hadn't retuned at all through that whole of that recording. All of this recording that you hear in this was done without any retuning whatsoever. So as I said earlier, if you make sure the strings are stretched in properly, you won't have any problem. The nuts on Epiphones are great, so no problem there. The tuners on this obviously are fine, are great, they look nice. Tuners are rarely a problem anyway when you get to this level, or tuners are never really a problem when you get to this level, to be honest with you. This SG Custom, it's another of the inspired by Gibson range that it's genuinely giving you a proper experience of owning a Gibson SG Custom at a fraction of the price. You know, these are retailing now. I mean, the Gibson version now, they've put an ebony finger. They've reissued this now, and they've put an ebony fingerboard back on it. And apart from that, I think it's exactly the same. And they're selling it for $4,000. To finish, I'm going to say, if you're one of these people that has never tried an SG, has been maybe put off because of the tuning things you hear about, or the devil horns maybe scare you a little bit, or whatever it is. If you're not sure, you know, you could give one of these a try. I urge you to give one of these a try, because I think you might be surprised at how versatile they are and how comfortable they are. And particularly if you're sitting around, you know, to grab an SG. It's almost unfair, really, that Epiphone are not giving us something to complain about. You know, it's not an expensive guitar. Surely something should be wrong with it that we can go, oh, this is a bit rubbish. The truth of the matter is I can't criticise this guitar. It's bloody great. And I'm going to get a standard now. I'm going to get a white standard because I really fancy having a white SG standard from Epiphone to compare it with an Epiphone Les Paul standard. So all that is left for me to do today is say thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me again. And I look forward to seeing you again next week, I hope. All right. Cheers for now. Ta-ra.